What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about Lucid, I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what's really influencing it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is flat, 213 the low, 217 the high. And so this is a little bit more of an earlier video than what I normally do, but I wanted to go over what just came out. So starting off, you see a lot of optimism in the broader market, primarily by growth stocks, and that is because of the data. So we did have initial jobless claims coming in a little bit lower than the forecast. So 236 versus 247. GDP was anticipated to be negative, but came in a little bit lower. Ultimately, this is being portrayed as a good reason to cut rates, despite 2 days prior, Powell mentioning that we're going to be seeing higher for longer. Now there is a 24.8% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the July 30th meeting. So market is taking this as a positive. So they're kind of spinning the negative as a positive. So that's kind of a good thing. But aside from that, the reason why Lucid is lagging is because of what was just stated. So I'll go over that in a second. But today, no news from Lucid, no SEC filing. So it is just merely piggybacking off of the broader market, but there was this that did come out. So it looks like Mark did do a podcast, part of the Automotive News Daily Drive podcast, where he did mention that the Gravity feedback is phenomenal. And one thing on a side note that I really do value about any Lucid employee is they've gone through their fair share of crap, in all honesty, and anyone who is open and willing to be honest, I value, and honestly, I respect. But you did see Mark mentioning right here that while the ramp is slower than hoped due to supply chain issues, tariffs, and rare earth disputes, Mark is saying that momentum is building. So he's kind of saying like a positive, negative, that whole kind of strategy, but he is at least mentioning that it's not going according to plan. So yeah, honestly, I respect him by saying that, but at the same time, I do feel that this is why Lucid is lagging, because for those of you that haven't been in Lucid for a while, there's something that they did in 2023 that honestly, I do feel is going to be coming this year. And don't hate the messenger. I always like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And clearly by Lucid lagging, there's a lot of things that the market isn't really happy associated to Lucid about. But with this and their target of 20,000, so in case you're kind of new to Lucid, their target for 2025 is 20,000 vehicles produced. And so ultimately, when it comes down to what is being stated, it's leaving grayness. And I think in reality, this upcoming Q2 earnings is going to be the same as what happened in 2023, where they did lower guidance. So 2023, they did encounter a lot of issues where they had to lower guidance twice that year. So Q2 earnings, that's where they did lower it from, I believe it was they gave vague between 10 to 14,000, and then they initially lowered it just to 10. So that was kind of what happened in the Q2. And then Q3, they lowered it from, I believe it was 10,000 to between 8 and 8,500, if I remember correctly. So ultimately, I do feel they will be cutting this upcoming earnings, their targets from 20,000 to realistically, I can see it being around 12, in my opinion. That some people again might be hating the messenger, but honestly, I feel like 12, given what we've seen so far, is fair that they will hit. So I feel that's kind of what will happen. Market, of course, is going to take that as a very strong negative and most likely prompt a little bit of a pullback. But again, with a lot more of these types of comments, this is why Lucid is lagging. So let me know your viewpoint on that. When it comes down to shorts, right now they're not really doing all that much, but 31.85% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 392.67 million shares. So shorts, for the most part, looks like back in October, short interest was roughly around 32.8. That is the all-time high short interest. So it is definitely getting there. So if Lucid doesn't put out some good news or something, then shorts will be really continuing to increase and double down. But again, I think on that kind of standpoint, shorts continuously increasing. They're putting themselves in a sticky scenario because Lucid is very unpredictable. They've done it in the past where they just put out some random news and honestly, it's amazing news, causes the stock price to go up higher. That is because of shorts overextending themselves. So it's a little bit of an interesting scenario that could play out. Again, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the ball is in Lucid's court. They have all the power. They can actually put out news. They can kind of do whatever they want. But they've been relatively even quiet on social media, in all fairness. But with the market just opening roughly 15 minutes ago, you have to take all of this with a grain of salt. Currently, there's 56,000 in calls, 16,000 in puts. So again, something to keep in mind. 60% of all the options being done are bearish in nature, and for the most part you're seeing a consensus for it to be roughly around that kind of above $2 mark. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market, so despite kind of the back and forth, I think algos are really pushing Lucid down because you are seeing so far 3 buys on the secondary market. So that's always a good thing. So big money is definitely buying up Lucid, and in reality, if there is a potential rate cut, that is very beneficial to the auto sector and EVs, because those are sectors that are very sensitive to interest rates. So by potentially a cut, that would be huge for the market. But I think going back to what Mark mentioned, technically, yes, they did disclose supply chain issues. They haven't been really clear on exactly what that means. Tariffs, during the last earnings, they did signal that they weren't worried about it and that potentially that could impact their margins, though, by like 10 to 15%, but they did mention that they're not really worried about that. But as I've mentioned, technically that does single out any Canadian buyers, because realistically, nobody's going to buy and pay, I think, was it the 25% right now? Nobody's going to pay 25% more than what they have to. And then rare earth disputes, that's a relatively new one that at least is from Lucid. We do know that the States, this is why Trump has been very pushy towards doing a deal with China, because as of right now, I believe China still has ceased any kind of exports of their rare earth minerals. So I think the States is really in dire need of them. So something, again, that Lucid really does need to kind of explain and go over. I didn't really pay attention to this podcast, so maybe they did actually break this down a little bit more, but something to keep in mind. With it at 217, it is trading between this S1 and S2, so 218 is going to be that key pivot, so just watch for it to get above that. So if it is able to get above, you could see a nice little spike up, as what we've typically seen in the past, and then $1.99 is going to be the strong support. I don't see that being touched, at least for the foreseeable future, unless Lucid does put out their Q2 numbers, and those aren't good, and at the same time, if they lower guidance, then I could see that $1.99 being touched. But aside from that, no new analyst ratings. As I've brought up in the past on the actual chart, it's not really all that great, nothing really positive to bring up. So it is below all the key pivotal moving averages. Stochastic RSI, it is, again, given the circumstances, somewhat up there, not really overbought. But at the end of the day, it's just waiting for the next big catalyst. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Again, I always like to bring up the good, the bad, and the ugly. So maybe I am completely taking this out of context. But I think it's any CEO's job to really hype up investors. So even though they do, or he does bring up a negative or several negatives here, he is clearly saying that the feedback is phenomenal and that momentum is building and that they are slowly ramping up. So what's your general thoughts on this? Do you think I'm reading too much into it? What's your kind of general thoughts on Lucid shorts doubling and tripling down? And do you realistically feel a cut is going to be coming for the July 30th? It's kind of weird. We were almost 100% guaranteed not to have a cut for the July 30th meeting, and then we just have some data points that are relatively negative, and then that just quickly flips. So what's your viewpoint on all that? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.